The first 16 measures of etude number 24 give us a very good idea about the difficulties we will encounter for the rest of the etude. One challenge is the need to have a very slow bow speed throughout and very constant pressure on the soft side as far as dynamics are concerned, so we can fit many notes per bow without straining the sound. We also have many high position harmonics, and during those instances I would suggest that we have very firm fingertips in your left hand and even slightly press the high harmonics so they don't sound flat. To me, the most important lesson we can learn from this etude is the need to almost constantly have to adjust the left hand, the wrist, the elbow angle, so it can negotiate all of these unusual or difficult intervals, especially when we have fourth finger usage, with some degree of comfort. Starting with measure 17, we have similar kind of challenges, but I'd like to make one more point. As we play passage work in thumb position, I would like to emphasize how important it is to have a very good octave frame between thumb and 3, and within the frame to have very clear distances such as whole steps and half steps, very different from each other, and to always have 2 or 3 prearranged intervals within that frame so we don't think note by note. The next few bars, starting with measure 34, 35, 36 and 37, provide a very good mini lesson from Popper in regards to the need to have a very elastic left hand. And I'm going to play those 4 bars slowly so you can see what kind of movements I have to do all the time with my wrist, fingers and elbow so I can negotiate the intervals written on the page. The next section I'd like to discuss begins in measure 45 and goes to the end of measure 58, during which time I'm going to have a couple of challenges that I'd like to point out. One of them is the pattern that has broken thirds going up and down the fingerboard. The only way to get clarity on those is by having very quick shifts in the left hand. And the other challenge is when we go past the end of the fingerboard, we are going to have some very small half steps, and the way to get them is not by putting fingers next to each other closely, but to have fingers almost on top of each other. So it's a technique we have to learn, and this is a very good place where we can get acquainted with this kind of need. next challenge is quite unique to this particular etude and is from bar 63 to bar 66. And we are going to think of two little pieces of advice, I would say, to get over the difficulty of this kind of challenge. One of them is to have a very good constant bow pressure so as to provide a good foundation of sound for the left hand and a bit more confidence. And also this kind of articulation of sixths, as we will encounter, can also benefit a little bit by having the left elbow going in and out to help us with the clarity. The next, again, mini lesson is in bar 71-72, not a very difficult passage, but it's an issue of chromaticism and intonation when we have chromaticism. The half step normally is very small when we have just one, but if we have many in a row, like in this case, I suggest that all the half steps become bigger so we end up in tune on the top note. And the last section that I like to discuss begins in bar 81 and goes to the very end of the etude, during which time we are going to find now even more of a better example of how when the fourth finger plays we have to really allow the left wrist and elbow to help with the situation by going forward, adjusting the angle and not having a stiff hand. We also will have once again some very high harmonics, and I like to remind everyone that it's really important that our fingertips are slightly more firm than the normal so we can negotiate those harmonics and not have them sound too flat.